Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lara and today I'm going to be talking about how to transition from your makeup no buy to your makeup low buy. And I feel like I have a good degree of expertise in this respect because I was on a makeup no buy for 2.5 years, 2019 to mid 2021. So I just wrapped it up a couple of months ago and I thought it was time to talk about my experiences and advise you possible ways to transition as well if that is something that you are looking to do. So if you recently were on a makeup no buy and you're looking to sort of switch into a bit more of a lenient phase of your relationship with makeup, then just keep watching. Now, if you've been here before, if you've watched any of my content in the past, you might find this a little bit ironic because I have discussed in recent videos how I'm not doing so well with this makeup low buy. Specifically, I somehow am unable to actually go out and purchase makeup. I let myself buy makeup if I wanted to when I finished the no buy, but I haven't actually gotten any new makeup. Just a little caveat that I am actually not doing great at this low buy in that I have stuck to my no buy. But nevertheless, I think that that's better than doing badly in the low buy in the sense of going out and buying a ton of makeup. If that was the case, then I would not really be able to advise you about how to move forward. But hopefully some of these tips that I will share with you today will be helpful. These are the rules that I have given myself. And keep in mind that these are not hard and fast rules, so take what works for you, don't use what doesn't work for you. And I'm coming at this from the angle of not wanting to return to my shopping habits pre-no buy and wanting to be a conscious consumer. So if those are not your goals, then keep that in mind because that is sort of what I will be speaking to throughout this video. If you are only on a no buy for a couple of months to sort of save some money, but you're happy to go back to your habits before makeup no buy, I'm not going to tell you to stop. Those are your decisions. So let's get into it. The first tip is to set rules in place, or at least change the rules that you had in place for your no buy if you did have any. You may think that, you're not on a no buy anymore, you don't need rules to stick to. I don't think that that's the case. I think as long as you have some kind of imposed system on yourself, like a low buy is constraints in some manner, I think that you need rules. So whether that is a budget that you want to stick to on a monthly or yearly basis, or whether that is a certain number of items that you want to bring into your collection, or a certain cap on the number of items that you want to bring into your collection, whatever that is, I think you need to put those rules in place if you did have rules on your no buy, because otherwise I think it's going to be easy to just sort of slip down that slidey slope and get going right back to your habits before your makeup no buy. Tip number 2, I think you need to stay in the mindset. Try to keep everything as much as possible the same as it was during your no buy. What I mean by this is it will be easiest to transition smoothly into this next phase, into your low buy, if you have as many of the same sort of constraints in place as you did before. If you're making a ton of changes, that's gonna sort of register to your brain as, oh, this is completely different, maybe we can go out and buy as much as we want. I think you need to keep the same mentality as you had during your no buy so that your brain thinks that you still have this strict, very conscious relationship to makeup. That way, when you do buy makeup, you'll see it as a little treat, a little luxury, rather than, just that's how things are now, rather than just having the mentality of changing back to how you were before. So hopefully you will never again return to these no buy tendencies. And again, I'm assuming that you went on this no buy because of that, because you wanted to change your relationship to makeup. So if one of your rules during your no buy was you can't just go in and browse at Sephora, you have to have a very specific purpose for being there, then keep that rule in place for your low buy. Tip number 3. If you're anything like myself, you started some kind of fun makeup project when you're on your no buy in order to keep up your interest with makeup. So my guess is Project Pan. Lots of people do Project Pan. I've done a whole series of videos on Project Pan, so I will link that here. And so my recommendation is to start some new fun makeup project so that you don't see buying makeup as kind of the only fun and exciting part of makeup, because it shouldn't be. Your collection should still be interesting and exciting to you and, worthy of finding undiscovered gems. it shouldn't be the only thing that you look forward to when you switch from your no buy to low buy. So if you haven't been project panning, then start, or maybe start a pan those eyeshadows series, or partners project pan cream, whatever the cream one is. I can never remember the names. I can never get them straight. Or maybe put together a new daily makeup bag with all new items that you weren't using before when you were on your no buy. This is what I did when I finished my no buy. I started a new panning project, so I will link it here. I did a pan those eyeshadows first video, and I'm excited about this new series. I also switched out a ton of makeup that was in my daily makeup bag because I was mostly using my project pan items on a day-to-day basis, and I was just kind of bored with them, so I didn't get as much use out of them as I would have liked this past month, but I just kind of needed a change, so I switched out a bunch of products, and it made me excited and looking forward to putting on my makeup every day. I was just bored of my project pan items, and that's okay, honestly, as long as I was staying interested in makeup and, you know, finding my collection fun. That's what's important if you are getting out of the no buy. So just do things to ensure that your makeup collection is still interesting to you. And just a side note that the eye look that I did today was with my pan those eyeshadows. Not that this is like too crazy or bold or anything, but I just don't know if I would have put this look together otherwise. Oh my god. I went camping this week. I have so many mosquito bites. I think there was something weird about these mosquitoes because the bites are like way itchier than I've ever felt before. Anyways, I used 2 gold shadows on my lid. They are getting a bit creasy, but I didn't use a great eyelid primer, so I'm gonna blame that. And then I did also use sort of a red liner on my eyes along with a brown liner. So that's this look. Tip number 4, no impulse shopping. This was a strict rule that I had during my no buy, and I think that it should stay the same on a low buy. Going forward, I always want to plan my makeup purchases because I think that this is the only way to bring items into my collection that I actually want to be there and that I have fully thought out. The way that I will have to do this personally is by basically not shopping at the drugstore again. So I intend to purchase pretty much all of my products, like high-end products rather than drugstore products, because I know that I just get sucked into cheap prices at the drugstore. So many things are always on sale, and that has just historically been bad news for me because I just get sucked into it and I'm like, oh, it's just a couple dollars, and I end up buying things. I just need to cut myself off from drugstore purchases entirely and just plan to spend more money on makeup because then more thought goes into it. But yeah, I just think that I know that it's a little bit upside down that I need things to be expensive in order to let myself buy them, but I think for myself that really is the best track to continuing a healthy relationship with makeup. I just know, even though it's been a couple years of me having a better relationship with makeup, I still, even when I go to the drugstore even now, I feel those feelings for the sale section. So I just need to stick to this for now. High-end makeup just encourages me to buy sparingly. The next tip is to refresh and recalibrate sort of where you are with your relationship to makeup and with your collection. You may actually need to be more strict with yourself now than you were when you were on your no buy. What I mean by this, for myself, when I was on the no buy, there was no question about me buying new makeup. Like, I knew that I had these rules in place and I just wasn't gonna break them. But now that I'm out of this sort of strict phase, I could easily see myself, you know, just letting myself buy whatever and not really monitoring my purchases. This is not an issue that I'm having, but I imagine that I could. And so by not having these strict rules in place, it would be easier to just fall back on those old patterns, which is why, earlier tip, you do need to have rules in place. So sort of do a refresh of what you did at the beginning of your no buy. Go through the emails that you're subscribed to, maybe see if there's any lists like ColourPop that you regularly get emails about their deals. You don't want to have that. Go through who you are subscribed to on YouTube and Instagram, see if there's any content creators who mostly promote hauls, that kind of content. That's probably not a good idea right now. See what your problem areas are with makeup and what you really feel the tendency to buy frequently. Basically, just try to figure out where your weaknesses are as pertains to makeup. The next tip, kind of building off of that, is try to figure out what your ideal makeup collection looks like. I'm sure you thought of this in vague terms, like, oh, maybe you want a minimalist or minimal makeup collection, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you want a much larger blush collection, but a much smaller bronzer collection. But try to think actually in terms of numbers and what that collection looks like. I think what would be really helpful in this regard is to actually tally up how much makeup you have in various categories and then try to figure out if each category is too much or too little. I don't think you can really fully comprehend how much makeup you have until you see the actual numbers. So it could be really helpful for you to look at the overall size of your collection and then imagine how it differs from your dream makeup collection, how much bigger it is than your dream makeup collection, and work from there. This is just helpful in general and keeping in mind so that you don't over purchase when you're on the low buy. The next tip, sort of going back to the point about finding out what your weaknesses are, figure out your problem areas and maybe impose a no buy just in those specific categories. You could just have a general low buy, but in certain categories, don't let yourself buy any new products. I know that Kelly Gooch did that this year. She imposed a no buy in specific areas where she felt like she had too many items. And I think that this is kind of the position that I am in right now, because there's some categories, like for example, concealer. I have one concealer. One. And so I could probably do with purchasing one or two more, but then when it comes to mascara, I have like probably around 30 mascaras. I should not be buying mascara until I whittle that down to, you know, 1/3 of the size of that, or even less than that. And blushes, I have more than a dozen blushes. I don't need to buy any new ones in that category, even though I love the blush category. So not fully decided on that point, but just sort of figure out where your problems areas are and which categories you should keep to a no buy. Okay, and the final point that I have for you today, don't see the end of your makeup no buy as an end point. You should see this as part of an evolving journey. Maybe this sounds a little bit ludicrous because like it's just makeup, it's not that deep, it's not like, you know, your relationship with yourself or your body, but I think you should still take it seriously, especially if you feel like you have had an issue with makeup addiction or makeup hoarding in the past. Then you could argue that it kind of is that serious. But yeah, just see this as part of an evolving journey, an evolving relationship to makeup. Don't stop trying to get to know your collection. Keep trying to pan your products, you know, and accumulate empties. Get the full value out of your products. Keep decluttering if you find things that you don't like anymore. You shouldn't stop doing these things just because you're being more lenient with what's being brought in, because you don't want to let things go back to the state that they were before. Otherwise, it'll just sort of be like a circle over and over again. You reach the end of your no buy and then you start purchasing way too much all over again. You just want it to be part of an evolving journey, evolving relationship with makeup, because you really don't want to have to start your no buy all over again and just be right back at the beginning. So that is it. Those are all of my tips to transition from makeup no buy to makeup low buy. I hope these were helpful for you. Let me know what resonated with you, and if you have been on a makeup no buy, how long you've been on one. Has anyone been on one longer than 2.5 years? Super curious to hear. If you are new to my channel, then welcome. At the end of every video, I talk about a book that I've been reading lately, just so that I keep a little bit of diversity within my content and it's not just 100% makeup focused, because of course I do have other interests, hard as that may be to believe. So what I just finished reading is this book called Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. This is the first time I've read Okorafor. I've heard about her books for a long time, but this was the one that I was most interested in. This is a YA novel that is really very similar to Harry Potter. It is about magic, a young woman who is albino. She's living in Nigeria and she discovers that she has magical powers. So the magic that is used is actually very, very different from Harry Potter magic, and that part was really refreshing and interesting because obviously the cultures are very different, but there was actually some plot points and kind of relationships that seemed very, very similar to Harry Potter to me. And I noticed that some other people left reviews that said the same thing on Goodreads, but this was a really enjoyable book. And if you know someone who is sort of that young adult or teenage years, I think this would be a great recommendation. And also if you yourself enjoy young adult novels. I read this in like 2 days. I went on a camping trip earlier this week and I just took a couple of books because I knew that I would be reading a lot by the beach and whatnot. So I read this very quickly. I wouldn't say it was my favorite book this year, but it was a pretty easy read. And again, if you are new, my name is Lara. I talk about all things makeup, consumerism, kind of anti-consumerism, project planning, and getting as much use out of your makeup collection as you possibly can. So I hope you will stick around, subscribe down below, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.